The Philippines. Traditional food habits. The Philippines is very similar to other Asian cultures in their food habits. Because of its geographic location, many of the same foods as Indonesians and Malaysians are grown in the Philippines. Despite this, they have a lot of influences from other countries as well. For example, the Philippines was conquered by the Spanish for over 300 years, and much of their food is part of the Filipino cuisine. The Spanish brought things like bread, guava, beef, sausage, flour, potatoes, papaya, and coffee. They also brought utensils such as forks, spoons, plates, and cups. I bring up this fact because some Filipinos still eat with their hands, which is the traditional way. Rice, much like other Asian countries, is a huge part of their diet. Every meal is eaten with rice and some form of meat, such as chicken, fish, pork, and occasionally beef. A core flavor principle for Filipinos is sour. Most meals are served with a fish sauce called patis. Vinegar is also common, and my personal favorite is tamarind. Tamarind is used for a soup base called sinigang. Additionally, added on the side is patis. Lemon can be added to things like pancit, which is rice noodles with vegetables. There's nothing about this dish that makes it sour, but Filipinos love to add lemon to this dish. Banana ketchup is also interesting in that I've seen it added to things like fried chicken and spaghetti. Another interesting tidbit is Filipinos always try to overfeed their guests. It is considered rude to not eat a lot when offered. For my family, it gets a little complicated because my grandparents would say something in English like, "Do you like such and such?" And to them, the semantics kind of change and it means, if you like it, then eat it. Now, how the Philippines has changed. Filipinos before the Spanish had tribal religions such as paganism, but after the Spanish conquest, many were converted to Catholicism. To this day, immigrants to other countries remain Catholic, like my relatives. As many people may know, the Philippines unfortunately has not progressed from being a third world country. They still struggle economically, though have shown improvements, have relatively high infant mortality rates, but are lower than before, and are constantly economically burdened with hardships and corruption. After finally gaining their independence from the Spanish, the Philippines still struggle governmentally and arguably still does today. Ferdinand E. Marcos became the president in 1965 and declared martial law, in which he reigned as a tyrannical leader for 21 years. With every succeeding leader, the Philippines continued to struggle economically. Corruption, too, always seemed to be an issue, as leaders would be impeached for their abuse of power or forced to step down for rigging elections. There remains a huge division between the rich and the poor, and even in the COVID situation. The Philippines struggle economically as is, but many families are struggling as their economy is halted because of COVID. Their lack of leadership always causes their president to enact martial law. Constant overuse of the military is common in the Philippines. Current health in the Philippines. Because of the Philippines' location, they experience a variety and multitude of disasters. Fires, landslides, volcanic eruptions, floods, earthquakes, and typhoons burden the land far too often. Before, efforts to help the affected were opportunistic in order to help in the next election and realistically weren't helpful anyways. Now the army is involved in helping these people rather than the government trying to manipulate them. Instead of accepting the fate of the natural disaster, the army hands out food, repairs the roads, and helps find the missing people. With the enactment of the Natural Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, the government took a more proactive role in fighting natural disasters, building homes to better withstand typhoons and avoiding areas highly prone to landslides in order to reduce the risk of lives lost. Although there has been advancement in health-related policies, the Philippines is still unable to help the most vulnerable. Mortality rates for children have decreased, and more women are able to deliver in an actual facility because of increased insurance coverage for 92% of its citizens. There have been improvements in regards to services for communicable diseases along with initiatives to reduce non-communicable diseases. Filipinos in general are living longer and are eating slightly healthier than before. They are more conscientious about eating too many fried foods and still value a well-balanced meal. The Philippine health agenda works to result in these three health guarantees. 1. Ensuring financial protection for the poorest people. 2. Improving health outcomes with no disparities. 3. Building health service delivery networks for more responsiveness. Many Filipinos go to other countries in order to get better opportunity. During the Spanish rule, they followed Spanish trade and exploration routes, going to places like Guam, Indonesia, and Mexico. More privileged Filipinos went to Spain in order to obtain an education. After the U.S. took over, more Filipinos immigrated to the U.S. The first big wave of immigrants was during the 14th century during the Spanish-Filipino-Mexican galleon trade. A second wave came after the Spanish-American War in 1899, and two more big waves caused a triple in numbers from 1980 to 2006. This is adobo, an iconic Filipino dish. It is made with a variety of meats, more common being chicken, then pork, seafood, and lastly vegetable adobo. It is made with vinegar, soy sauce, and garlic that is slowly simmered. Hopefully you have all heard of adobo because this tends to be a favorite for a lot of people. Typically it is served with rice and can be made in bulk for celebrations, holidays, and birthdays. Thank you for listening to my presentation.